American actor Kelsey Grammer has lived a life full of ups and downs. The artist shot to fame for his role in Cheers, in which he played the intriguing psychiatrist doctor. If it's been a while since you've set foot in a shopping mall food court or been stranded at a regional airport in the middle of the afternoon, it's probably been a long time since you've eaten at a Sbarro, that middling staple of convenience food that features slices of too sweet, too doughy pizza served at room temperature. Turns out, you're not alone. In the last 15 years, the company has closed hundreds of stores, putting the total count at less than half of what it was in 2004. That year, the company was at its peak, generating $465 million in sales spread across 762 locations. What went wrong? What happened to this ubiquitous pizza chain, the former anchor of a Saturday afternoon shopping experience? How did it transform into just another victim of the suburban shopping mall decline, alongside KB Toys, Waldenbooks, Goody, and Aeropostale? And is there anything the company can do to fight back, and reemerge a stronger, cheesier, saucier version of its former self? These are the reasons Sbarros are slowly vanishing nationwide. Americans just aren't that into shopping malls anymore. The biggest problem Sbarro faces is the changing way in which Americans are doing their shopping. Sbarro's entire strategy was intrinsically tied to its shopping mall-only locations. While you could visit a Domino's Pizza or a Pizza Hut restaurant anytime you felt like, Sbarro locations tended to be located strictly in food courts. The strategy worked fine, in the days when people would spend hours of their lives aimlessly wandering around gigantic, sprawling shopping malls, peeking in windows, throwing coins in the fountain, avoiding eye contact with pimply members of the opposite sex, and committing petty acts of vandalism. Frasier Crane. Over the years, the versatile actor has garnered recognition for his unmatched skills and acting talent. He was honored with the Golden Globe Award 3 times, for his work on Frasier in 1996 and 2001 and for Boss in 2012. Grammer has continued to stay active through the years and is still a part of the entertainment industry. His professional success aside, less known is the fact that Kelsey Grammer has led a very tragic life and has lived through several traumatic experiences. From his family life to fighting addiction to his romantic relationships, things have often been topsy-turvy for the actor, who has somehow managed to brave it all and stay strong. A stop at Sbarro fit into a day spent shopping quite naturally, since the mall was the only place to eat Sbarro's unique combination of slowly congealing cheese and oil-pooled pepperoni, and no trip to the mall would feel complete without a pit stop in the food court for a slice of pizza. However, with overall mall traffic on the decline, and Americans doing more and more of their shopping online, in big box stores, or in smaller specialty boutiques, Sbarro's sales are also faltering. Sbarro carried too high a debt balance to survive the lean times. Most major corporations carry some amount of debt, as a means of managing their balance sheets and maximizing the potential return for investors. "I just put that pain where it is," in the past, he once said, via the Associated Press. But it's pain that you can always stumble into again. It's with you 24/7, especially in the case of tragic death, and there have been a few of those. Under normal conditions and when applied carefully, a company carrying a debt balance isn't always, in itself, a bad thing. However, when that debt load gets too high, and when it coincides with several unlucky years of declining sales, a company can get in real trouble due to its decreased ability to move nimbly in response. Sbarro's debt load was as unhealthy as much of its product. When business was booming, it wasn't an issue, but as sales started to slip, the company began a free fall that ultimately landed it in bankruptcy court, twice. It's just part of life. Here's a look at some of the most important events from the actor's life, including his childhood, his years in the theater and television industries, his acting triumphs, his broken relationships, his life lessons, and more. Kelsey Grammer's parents separated when he was a kid. Kelsey Grammer was born in the U.S. at its worst in 2011. Sbarro was $487 million in debt, while holding just $471 million in assets. Virgin Islands, according to Showbiz Cheat Sheet. His dad owned a bar and grill called Greer's Place. Even after restructuring this debt through bankruptcy proceedings, the company still emerged with liabilities of $165 million. That's a lot to cover through the sales of slices of pizza sold almost exclusively in the abandoned, haunted halls of rapidly declining shopping malls. Pizza ingredient costs are on the rise. Your local pizza joint has some of the best profit margins in the restaurant business, which can reach as high as 20%. When Grammer was around 2 years old, his parents decided to separate, and he moved with his mom and sister to New Jersey and then Florida. Meanwhile, his father stayed on the islands. He married someone else and fathered more children. Grammer was deeply attached to his grandfather, who raised him with the actor's mom. After all, the ingredients are cheap. A little flour, yeast, water, cheese, and toppings are all that you need to get started. Sadly, as reported by Business Insider, Grammer lost him when he was just 11 years old, a huge blow and something that was understandably tough for the boy to deal with. By some estimates, a pepperoni and sausage pizza can cost as little as $1.90 to make. What he didn't know back then was that he would have to endure a lot more over the next few years in terms of tragedies and learning to live with losing loved ones. Kelsey Grammer's father was murdered. Tragedy struck again in 1968 when Kelsey Grammer's father, Frank, was killed. The future actor was just 13 at the time. According to Business Insider, a stranger named Arthur B. Niles set Frank's car on fire and then shot him as he ran outside. Niles was believed to be mentally ill and was kept in a psychiatric ward for many years. Sell that pizza for $14, and you're looking at a 636% markup. In 1994, he was set free but ended up in jail in 2003 when he threatened to murder a judge. As reported by USA Today, Grammer didn't know about his father's murderer being released until he read about it in a tabloid, and he later became vocal about the rights of individuals who've been subjected to heinous crimes. Even after the owner of a pizzeria pays for rent, heat, propane, insurance, and a few mildly interested staff members, those are still great numbers. But what happens when the cost of these core ingredients starts to creep upward? Let's look at cheese, for example, since it can be one of the costliest ingredients for a pizza chain. In 2014, the cost of mozzarella cheese suddenly spiked by 16%, with cheddar cheese rising by about 25% overall. According to a contemporary piece on Frank's murder published by United Press International, Grammer's dad was a rather vocal magazine publisher and was controversial on the islands for his outspoken nature. That may not seem like much, but for a massive chain like Sbarro or Papa John, for whom cheese cost represents 35 to 40% of their overall food cost, this can have a dramatic impact on profitability. In order to stay in the black, many pizza places have little choice but to raise prices, which can be tough for customers to swallow when sales are already in decline. Pretty much every corner store now sells pizza. In the 1990s, one of the things that gave Sbarro cachet was the exclusivity of its product. If you wanted to get down on some greasy pizza, you had to find a pizza place, or, your local food court. Since then, however, pizza has become so ubiquitous that it's almost impossible to get away from. His murder led to a rise in racial tensions between the island's white and black residents at the time. Pizza is everywhere, with some version of a slice being slung from the checkout stands at Target, to the mom-and-pop sandwich shop down the street. Grab a tank of gas at the local gas station, and you can probably add a slice of pizza to the experience for just $1 or $2. The frozen food section of the supermarket is clogged with heat and serve pizzas, emblazoned with the faces of celebrities like Oprah Winfrey or Rachel Ray. As for Grammer, losing his grandfather and dad in such a short period of time was a lot to take in. Kelsey Grammer's sister was murdered. Kelsey Grammer and his family went through more heartbreak when the actor was 20 years old. And if all of that requires too much pre-planning or doesn't align with your growing disinterest in leaving the house, you can pick up the phone or fire up an app and have a pizza delivered right to your door within 20 minutes, at any time of the day or night. In July 1975, 7 years after his father was killed, Grammer's sister, Karen, was kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered. She was 18. Grammer was the one who had to identify her body. Karen's attackers were two men named Freddie Glenn and Michael Corbett. They were found guilty and initially put on death row, a decision that was later overturned. Pizza is literally everywhere, and Sbarro just doesn't feel as special as a result. Corbett died in prison in 2019. If you want pizza, you aren't looking for Sbarro anymore.
Sbarro doesn't cook food fresh to order. You know how when you're trying to decide what to have for lunch, you always opt for the thing that's been sitting out for a while under fogged up plexiglass, prepared minutes or even hours before you actually ordered it? Yeah, we don't either. Because Sbarro's biggest asset is its always ready when you are availability. Most of the chain's food isn't cooked to order. Glenn tried to seek parole several times, but Grammer has blocked his attempts via The Independent. And the trade-off for that convenience is quality. Sbarro has been stuck with an outdated business model, says Michael Whiteman, a restaurant consultant and president of Baum & Whiteman LLC in Brooklyn, New York. He said, I have learned to forgive. Its biggest shortcoming is that it sells food that has been sitting out for a while, and more people want food made to order. 20 years ago, we didn't think twice about ordering food that's been sitting under warmers, but these days, we know we don't have to go too far to get the fresh stuff. Sbarro doesn't deliver, and that's a problem because Sbarro's most major foothold was in shopping malls and airport food courts. They missed out on a large slice of the pizza business, delivery. Delivery accounts for about $70 billion in pizza sales annually, with technologically advanced app-driven options from Domino's Pizza, Pizza Hut, and Papa John's leading the pack, generating about 45% of overall food delivery sales. Sbarro is now in the position of trying to play catch-up, as it finally realizes how important delivery is to the pizza business, but it's a rocky road. We're learning a lot, says Chief Marketing Officer Ann Pritz. I have even told the guy the first forgive him, although I don't advocate his freedom. It's a very challenging business. We had never done delivery or carry-out before. I don't think that is reasonable, the actor said. And there's a lot of nuances. You have to master online ordering. You have to master customization. He further added that he believed that Glenn shouldn't be free simply because the punishment shouldn't be worse for the family than it is for the guy that killed the person. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Grammer reflected on one of the most painful experiences he's lived through. He revealed that he told the parole board in 2009 that he misses Karen immensely and that as her big brother, he felt he was supposed to protect her. You have to master new products. When he couldn't, he was gutted. Kelsey Grammer lost his half-brothers in an accident. Kelsey Grammer had to live through more trauma when he lost two of his half-brothers in a scuba diving accident 5 years after his sister was murdered. And you have to make sure, ultimately, that you are not sacrificing the quality of your product when you're making those deliveries that are 20 miles or 20 minutes from your store. Sbarro's social media game is weak in spite of the best efforts of some poor young underpaid interns somewhere in a cubicle in Columbus, Ohio, where Sbarro is headquartered. Sbarro's social media presence just hasn't been able to capture the imaginations of customers the way their competitors have. Sbarro's 300K Facebook followers may seem like plenty, until you punch up the pages of competing pizza chains. Pizza Hut's got 31 million followers. According to Showbiz Cheat Sheet, Stephen and Billy Grammer were out scuba diving in the Virgin Islands in June 1980. Domino's Pizza has 20 million. When Billy didn't come back to the surface after the dive, Stephen went looking for him. Unfortunately, he passed away from an embolism, probably on account of an ascent gone wrong. Even those sad sacks over at Papa John's are clocking 6 million fans. So what's the deal with Sbarro's social media following, or lack thereof? The company posts the right mix of lifestyle photography, edgy memes that seem to be pleading for virality, contests, and all of the other junk straight out of the social media marketing playbook, which makes their relatively small following something of a puzzle. Billy was never found. Grammer has acknowledged in interviews that tragedy has been an integral part of his life. The actor hasn't shied away from speaking about the heartbreak he's suffered from losing so many members of his family. The answer may be very simple: most of the people who unceremoniously cram a triangular box of pizza down their gullets aren't looking to memorialize the experience with a Facebook follow. Fast food companies have some of the highest engagement rates on social media, so for Sbarro to not even have a seat at that table is a detriment, for sure. Pizza trends are changing, and Sbarro isn't keeping up for a food business based on such a simple combination of ingredients. The pizza industry continues to be an ever-evolving beast. Every one of us is going to experience some terrible loss, he said via Vanity Fair. It's up to restaurants like Sbarro to keep up with current shifts in consumer preference, and some restaurants do it better than others. Pizzas with buffalo wing sauce bases, Alfredo sauce, or barbecue sauce. I just got a big dose. For every story you hear that's tragic, there's another that's equally tragic or more so. Palate-confusing combinations like roasted pear and blue cheese. I think you come to look at it as part of life. Kelsey Grammer first discovered acting in high school. Kelsey Grammer started acting early. According to the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, he was 16 years old when he played a role in a theater production of The Little Foxes in School. For him, hearing the audience clapping and appreciating his acting skills was as rewarding as being on a surfboard and riding a wave. Inventive toppings, like tortellini, mac and cheese, or avocado. I didn't excel at school because I was surfing most of the time, Grammer reflected years later. Exotic upgrades to standard-issue mozzarella, like Asiago or fresh buffalo mozzarella. But when I heard the applause after that first play, at that very moment I thought, I could do this for the rest of my life. And that's kind of what happened, he added. As explained by Hello! Magazine, Grammer was good enough to make it into the respected Juilliard School. Gluten-free or alternative flour crusts. These are the options that more and more consumers are looking for, and other large pizza chains like Pizza Hut and Domino's Pizza are keeping up with expanded menus riddled with more choices, offering more options than ever for adventurous diners. Not Sbarro. Sbarro is sticking with the tried and true formula of sweet red sauce, doughy crust, and as much cheap mozzarella heaped on each slice as humanly possible, even as consumers are moving on and ready to try new things. The mall has much better options for food now. When shoppers do still congregate at a shopping mall, they're still stopping for something to eat. However, his time at the institution didn't last. According to the actor, he was kicked out because of a lack of discipline on his part. Kelsey Grammer's acting career began with theatre. Grammer's acting career took off with theatre. They're just not stopping at Sbarro. According to londontheatre.co.uk, he made his Broadway debut playing Lennox in Macbeth in 1981. As detailed by the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, getting to that point wasn't easy for Grammer, who had to rough it out in regional theatre. When you look at Sbarro's numbers, it would seem that an overall downward trend in mall shoppers correlates with their declining business, right? Not so. There are some malls that are still thriving today. After he was expelled from Juilliard, Grammer promptly made his way to the Old Globe Theatre in San Diego, California. He was a part of the institution for 3 summers and worked on getting better at acting. And those malls still have food courts, some of them are even upgrading and expanding those food courts to meet customer demands. But the food courts you'll find at the mall today are nothing like food courts of the 90s. Today, hungry shoppers want local food, healthy eats, maybe even a side of locally crafted beer. Sbarro might be there, somewhere between the Sweet Green and the Bear Burger, but we're willing to bet their line is a whole lot shorter than those other places. There is nothing to distinguish Sbarro from any of its competitors. The fact that there are many fast food chains that are wildly successful at selling food that isn't very good is hardly news. Need evidence? Taco Bell, Arby's, and KFC all sell food that isn't objectively of particularly high quality. I did plays by Shakespeare and Shaw, and that really cemented my sense of professionalism, Grammer said. A casting director, Mary Jo Slater, who worked with Grammer and first met him in 1978, described him as handsome, with a mop of curly, blonde hair. Instead, these companies employ other techniques to make their food and the experience of dining in their restaurants memorable. Eat a Doritos Locos Taco Supreme from Taco Bell, and there's no confusion about where it came from, since no other company was struck with the divine inspiration to successfully wrap a taco in a giant nacho cheese tortilla chip. He was young and charismatic, funny and very charming. If you've eaten at an Arby's recently, it's probably got something to do with their creative and quirky television advertisements, narrated by H. John Benjamin, of Bob's Burgers and Archer fame. In both examples, these companies employ techniques that exist outside of the realm of the actual quality of their food, in order to make them memorable and desirable. Who can ever remember any significant detail about eating at a Sbarro? That time there was maybe too many dried oregano sprinkles? The entire experience is bland, nondescript, and indistinguishable from its competitors. Sbarro's attempts at rebranding got met with a big yawn after emerging from bankruptcy protection in 2014. Sbarro was determined to address many of the problems we've outlined so far with a total branding overhaul. The dated font and Italian flags of the previous logo were gone, replaced by a clean, modern, sans serif typeface tagged with the words NYC.1956, in an effort to remind customers of the brand's Brooklyn roots. The changes were more than merely cosmetic. In an effort to appeal more to customers' desire for fast casual-style eateries, Sbarro is also experimenting with freestanding restaurants, divorced from the declining foot traffic of the mall food court. Kelsey was someone who stood out from the rest of the guys, she said. She helped Grammer by getting him gigs that helped him get by. We've listened to our customers and are excited to take our concept out of the food court setting and into their neighborhoods, according to CEO J. David Karam, with the launch of both freestanding Sbarro restaurants and Pizza Cucinova, which features cooked-to-order pizzas made with artisanal ingredients including at least 100% more artichoke hearts, fired in wood-burning ovens in just 3 minutes. These changes feel like steps in the right direction, but will they be enough to revamp Sbarro's sketchy image? Thus far, signs are pointing to no. In 2016, the chain still saw a 10.6% decline in sales over the previous year, and in 2017 it fell 5.5%. The food isn't very good after all of this talk. There's one final simple truth we kind of have to face. During any in-depth conversation about Sbarro, the food is, at best, just kind of and people don't seem to like it very much. Sure, we get it. Maybe if you've never seen or imagined pizza before, a trip to Sbarro can be exciting. He helped her out by looking after her son, Christian Slater, who later became a successful actor as well. But the best thing you can say about it is that it's serviceable, the kind of bland, unimaginative food that you might find in a middle school cafeteria, for example, or being slung at a fundraiser to buy new uniforms for the local basketball team. Things were so hard between jobs at one point that Grammer even considered collecting unemployment benefits but found it too saddening and demoralizing. It's a cafeteria-style, assembly line, cartoonishly simplistic rendering of what a 7th grader thinks Italian food is supposed to be like, overflowing with bargain basement mozzarella and slathered with painfully sweet tomato sauce. This ode to mediocrity isn't a bargain, either. At around $3.50 a slice, anyone with even a casual interest in pizza can find a much better slice literally almost anywhere else. For a long time, Sbarro was able to build their brand based solely on the marketing concept that eating pizza is better than not eating pizza, and here's pizza right now, but that doesn't seem to be enough to carry the company for much longer. He worked hard, took on small roles, and found a way to slowly make a name for himself. Kelsey Grammer's big break was his role as Dr. Frasier Crane. Kelsey Grammer's big break was, undoubtedly, his role as psychiatrist Dr. Frasier Crane in Cheers. According to Mental Floss, he was added to the show in its 3rd season. While he was initially supposed to only be around for a small number of episodes, Frasier became popular on account of good writing and Grammer's acting skills. Of course, he ended up starring as Dr. Crane in the spin-off Frasier. The show first aired in 1993 and ran for 11 years. In fact, Grammer was Frasier onscreen for a really long time, 20 years, to be precise. When it comes to his acting process, Grammer revealed to The Guardian that his acting process is relatively spontaneous. "I'm a walk-on guy," he said. "When the director says, action, I'm on." According to The Independent, Grammer never really let his success get to his head and stayed true to his roots. He said that he views the industry as a chance to get work and not as a way to either be famous or rich. Kelsey Grammer battled addiction. Kelsey Grammer got into drinking and drugs in a bid to cope with the pain he felt from the tragedies that struck his family, according to Page 6. Grammer's drinking ended up landing him in prison in 1990 for drunk driving. "I've been through my share of tough times," Grammer told Parade via People in 2007. "I'm a very different guy now." Grammer's vices weren't limited to alcohol and drugs. Women, extreme experiences, and recklessness were all a part of it. He has stated that he considers himself an addictive personality and that he was on self-destructive path at one point. Grammer admitted that he liked his addictions, but knew it was getting too much. "I got in too deep. I probably would have died if I hadn't stopped," he reflected. Luckily for Grammer, his Frasier co-stars knew he needed help and did everything they could to support him. They even organized an intervention for their friend via Showbiz Cheat Sheet 3 years into Frasier, at which point it finally dawned upon Grammer that he needed to seek help to fight his addictions. While it was hard for the rest of the show's cast because they weren't sure what would happen, the intervention worked. He voluntarily checked into the Betty Ford Center in 1996 to overcome his addiction and live a life of sobriety. Kelsey Grammer's personal life has been turbulent when it came to his personal relationships. Drama was seemingly unavoidable for Kelsey Grammer. He got married 3 times and endured plenty of heartbreak until he found peace with his 4th wife, Katie Walsh, pictured above, whom he married in 2011. According to Hollywood Life, Grammer revealed that his 3rd marriage, with actor Camille Grammer, was exhausting. When he was asked to describe any point in a past relationship when he knew things wouldn't work out, the actor said, "My previous marriage, honestly, I don't really talk about her, Camille, very much because so much of her life is spent talking about me." Grammer said that after his mom passed away, his ex-wife threw a tantrum at the funeral and started asking him to divorce her. Grammer said that the couple had been involved in the same conversation for 8 long years, and he was tired. I realized at that moment that I was done with her, that I was not going to end up in this relationship for much longer, and somewhere under a year, I was done, Grammer reflected. On top of that, Grammer's second wife, an exotic dancer named Lee Ann Shuani, was abusive via people. Right from the beginning of their relationship, she would insult Grammer in public and say hurtful things to him. Toward the end of their marriage, she told one of Grammer's friends that she planned to shoot him and burn down their house, after which the actor got a restraining order and ended the marriage. Kelsey Grammer lost some of his kids. Kelsey Grammer and his wife, Katie, had more than one miscarriage before their kids were born, per the Associated Press. Grammer said, "Katie and I had a couple of miscarriages before we had our first child. That was devastating. These things are hard. But when it's good, it's magnificent." He also referred to his previous relationships and said that he'd found his current relationship at the right time. "I survived my previous relationships just in time to land in a place where I could be in a relationship with a terrific person." When Grammer was with Lee Ann Shuani in 1993, things were rather difficult. The couple were expecting their first child when things took a turn for the worse. According to People, Grammer had filed a restraining order against Shuani, and he sent her a notice demanding an annulment. Shuani, who was 3 months pregnant at the time, didn't take the news well and tried to kill herself. Fortunately, she was rushed to a hospital and treated. However, the pregnancy was aborted a few days afterward. Grammer said back then, "I am deeply saddened by the events leading to the loss of the unborn child. I had dreamed of raising the baby in a stable and loving environment. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK 8255. Kelsey Grammer suffered a heart attack in 2008. In 2008, Kelsey Grammer went through a health scare when he suffered a heart attack. His publicist, Stan Rosenfield, said at the time, Grammer experienced symptoms Saturday morning after paddle boarding with his wife Camille at their Hawaiian home. He added that the actor was rushed to a hospital, where doctors concluded that he'd had a mild heart attack, via ABC News. In 2012, when the actor looked back at the incident, he said that he was grateful for the experience. "It was a good thing in my life," he said on Oprah's Next Chapter, via the Toronto Sun. "It was the physical manifestation of whatever lesson was being taught to me, which was you better fix it, your life, now." He added that it did take him a few years, but he finally understood that he needed to change a few things about his life and be better. Kelsey Grammer has been embroiled in legal controversies. Kelsey Grammer's troubles have been numerous, to say the least, and that includes legal troubles. In 1995, a babysitter accused him of rape, a charge for which a grand jury declined to indict Grammer, via the New York Times. The jury ruled that the young woman's year-plus delay in speaking out about the incident and the lack of physical evidence made it difficult to back her claims. She insisted that the actor had intercourse with her twice at a resort. After the grand jury's decision, Grammer stated that he was ready to move on. "I have said from the outset that there was no basis for the allegations," he said in a statement. "I look forward to putting this all behind me."
Additionally, one of Grammer's ex-flames, former ice skater Chirlette Lamb, sued the actor for libel and invasion of privacy in 2001, via Time. This happened after the actor mentioned Lamb in his autobiography, So Far, in which he wrote that she was needy and lost their dog after getting high.